All right, November 13th, 2025, a Thursday. Jackman brothers are here in New Hampshire, and I'm so psyched. This is a returning guest having back on. I think this is your second time on the show. It's Austin Picard. Austin, thanks for joining us.
Of course, buddy. Thanks for having me on as always.
Hell yeah. So Austin is the host of his own show called the Underclass Podcast, and then he co-hosts a couple other shows. One of them is with Jose Galison, called The Already Dead, and then the other one is with Sam Tripoli. And that whatever this is with Sam Tripoli, and you guys put out some bangers there.
Brad Bankley as well from the Propaganda Report. I love him. He's
yes.
The best. Yeah.
And before we were rolling, I was telling Austin, he's really one of the few people in the independent space, the parapolitics space, that I listen to with any real regularity, and who I'm actually really consider myself a big fan of and am excited about. Kind of in the vein I used to be when Joe Rogan would put bangers out, but now I'm bored by a lot of that mainstream shit. I mean, I look at that all as mainstream now. A lot of it's just pap and noise and propaganda and fucking Mike Baker chewing on a cigar and not saying shit for 2 hours and spewing CIA talking points. So I wanted to bring Austin on because he recently dropped a 4-hour just nightmare, phantasmagoric hellscape episode about the Columbine shooting. And I say that all as praise because of the digging that you did, Austin, and the research that you did. And so we want to talk about Columbine. I want to hear Austin talk about what we understand is the official story of what that shooting was. It happened in April of 1999, if I remember correctly. Mike and I were in 6th grade here in New Hampshire. And then the other event we want to touch on is the Vegas shooting, which was October 1st of 2017.
Yes.
That one right too. Okay, the biggest mass shooting in U.S. history, and it was basically Mandela in about a week.
Right.
So 2 huge events. So basically, I guess to start, Austin, just if you can speak to, we'll start with Columbine because that's the freshest one, and really incredible work you just did. And I recommend everyone go to the Underclass podcast on YouTube and all other platforms for podcasts and subscribe to that and give it 4 hours, because I ran into my friend in the park the other day and he's like, dude, Jackman, you guys haven't done a podcast in a while. I'm like, we got one coming, dude. We got one coming. And my boy just did one about Columbine and it fucking throttled me. So I wanted to talk to you about that, Austin. So what is the kind of accepted official narrative about Columbine? What is it that we have been led to believe about it? And then from there, let's just get into some of the things that you found and dug up and discovered that tell us that it's kind of something different than what we've been told.
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for saying all of that. I appreciate it more than I think you realize. And yeah, I am overwhelmingly grateful for anyone kind of engaging with my content at any level, but especially, going through that emotional roller coaster with me, because that's how it feels to me personally. And I can only hope that I kind of evoke a similar reaction to what I go through, as much as I should have probably apologized for that because honestly, by the end of it, I feel kind of fractured in a way, and I almost endure a sort of hangover effect and my own personal Columbine effect, I guess I could say, on this one specifically. And I just I have to kind of decompress for a brief time and remember and reprioritize what is beautiful and most important in life, and I think that that helps bring me back from descending down those dark rabbit holes and having such a sinister effect on your, not only your emotional state of mind, but it has a sort of spiritual consequence to it, I think. And I feel that as far as just to my core, in my soul at a certain point. And so I think that, once again, I can't really illustrate or describe how appreciative I am at this point, for everyone who's kind of, just, I don't know, just come along this path with me, and especially people I've been able to meet and have new relationships with and interactions with and learn and grow from and create content things of that nature. It's I think that's a very unique dynamic that I appreciate more than I think many others do at this point. And it might be just yeah, a level of there's kind of you bury your soul at a certain point when you have these conversations and you go down these various avenues of thought and kind of put yourself out there in a way where you're very let's just say vulnerable, you know, and psychologically and in many different ways. I mean, I get emotional very often on just speaking on these subjects specifically, and especially in terms of episodes I've done covering sinister child abuse networks and things of that nature, obviously, because it gets to such a disturbing level in terms of any of the details. But with these two shootings, it's really a microcosm into what I believe to be a perfect window into really the strategic nature of the intelligence apparatus and how I think this is a post World War II, a very well entrenched kind of network that seemingly utilizes this very similar playbook that involves modern gladio techniques, I believe, the strategy of tension, Michael Aquino's mind war, and the psychology of victory, which I think was about emotion arousing violence, violent false flags, and things of that nature, which would essentially heighten the tension within the domestic population to a certain level, to where we would be basically at each other's throats, right, and at every turn, and arguing over things that don't necessarily acknowledge the root cause of our problems, and especially lead us into any real plausible direction toward an effective solution of any kind. And I think that's all by design. And I witnessed these patterns play out so often that it's hard not to recognize them over time. And Jose and I have kind of described the pattern recognition as a superpower at a certain point, you know, and because it really does feel that way, and you can kind of spot things as they come so more effectively once you're well versed in a lot of these various cases that, man, you put them in as far as you just kind of compare them to each other and see the overlap, witness the overlap, and it is the operational kind of just agenda being achieved on the ground level. It's something that it's hard to just kind of dismiss once you're I guess among the initiated in terms of the pattern recognition, right? And so anyway, we are in the midst of PSYOP season currently in this very moment, and I believe limited hangouts are all around us. And we have fog and mirrors and this diabolical propaganda that's, I think, far more sophisticated than many of us. They're trying to force us to swallow the clown pill, I think, to a certain extent. And I'm not willing to be that naive at this point, understanding how well they have kind of developed these techniques over time. You know, it's impossible for me to imagine that they haven't been able to achieve this sort of you understand the operational tools that they would have effectively in place.
They've fine-tuned their ability to psyop us and distract us and manipulate us and scare us and be in control of our smiles and our tears, as George Harrison said, and all those years ago as tribute to John Lennon. So, you know, Columbine, when I think about Columbine, you know, Mike and I were 12 years old in 6th grade when that happened. And it really was just shocking. And it is a Gladio style, you know, evoking of those feelings and that horror. So,
right. And you know what? This is also kind of how I stumbled onto this line of investigative research and interest at all in any real way. It was essentially through questioning the kind of psychology of a serial killer, right? And realizing that the concept of a serial killer in general, I think, is very much misunderstood and many of the most well-known and prominent profiles that fit into that category are clearly just low-hanging fruit in a wider network of sinister abuse and trafficking, and really just in terms of let's say tying off loose ends and effectively you know, murdering their targets at the end of the day after they kind of let's just say exploit them to their end. And then obviously some of the victims will age out of these organizations as well. And I think it's just very interesting because what typically occurs is you have this lower network that will help abduct the targets and the priority targets and the obvious victims that are essentially kind of on the short list of who is being ordered for, because basically there are so many different fetishes being kind of, this is a sinister enterprise, right? That people aren't kind of grasping in terms of the broad scope of what they're hoping to achieve. And this falls into the Odyssey Foundation and the which became the Delta Project after John David Norman was imprisoned and incarcerated, and he essentially tasked one of his fellow inmates by the name of Phil Paskey with running the operation while he was in prison, as far as while John David Norman was, and Phil Paskey got out. And so Phil Paskey was good friends with John Wayne Gacy and actually worked on John Wayne Gacy's construction crew. And so basically what it, and by the way, John Wayne Gacy was in the JCs, the junior what is that?
Junior Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, that is it. And with many other very prominent, notable political.
With the Democratic Party, right? Or
Bill Clinton was
it the Democrat or Republican Party?
It was sort of. It was kind of a conservative in a way, but at the same time, it really was effectively just identifying individuals who showed qualities that would apply to this path of leadership in the future and potential political kind of just putting them on the path toward becoming a political asset in a certain way as well.
And it's like a proto Denny Hastert, you know?
Yeah. Truly, and the Ed Kemper was also a member of the JC's chapter with John Wayne Gacy, which is very strange to me. And but anyway, the point being is that basically I believe that John Wayne Gacy was just a sort of a patsy for the overall network and
front guy.
Yes, and was essentially helping abduct many of the priority targets, such as the paperboy fetishes that were being pursued at the time, which were ordered through Michael Aquino. Essentially is how it was described by victim Paul Bonacci, and basically this was all to and this was through the North Fox Island connection as well, which is Francis Sheldon and what they were off. Yes, exactly. This all has these tentacles are in my mind, it does represent the octopus of global control in many ways, as Charlie Robinson has put so very well, and also it applies perfectly to that of the Danny Castellero octopus, because I believe he was on that trail when he was essentially the worst case of suicide you've ever seen. You know, it's just absolutely ridiculous when you realize the people he was investigating and supposedly meeting at the time before his death.
So I know you trip over some of these things on the road to Columbine.
Yes. That is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, no, I know. So basically, Austin, Columbine has been sold to us that there were these two kids. They were outcasts. They were part of what's known as the Trenchcoat Mafia.
Yes.
They were bullied. They hated the jocks. They hated the cheerleaders. They hated the popular kids. And they were big time gamers, right? Like video games, and they were into shooting guns. And the two of them together, just the two of them, with nobody else, plotted to blow up Columbine High School with pipe bombs and shoot the place up.
Exactly. And it's so two disaffected teenagers, right, staged the entire high school with dozens of pipe bombs, as well as, you know, they already manufactured apparently 99 pipe bombs and propane bombs as well as dry ice bombs, as you know, were involved. But I believe some of them even had time charges as well, which they used from alarm clocks and various kind of different. I forget the other mechanism that they kind of took apart and utilized it for the trigger mechanism for the time bomb, essentially. But it was interesting. So they were meant to believe that they essentially did this without anyone noticing it, and that in itself is a little ridiculous in my opinion.
What it would cost to put this operation together? Where are these two high school kids getting all this money from?
Exactly, that's another a real issue here, and according to Chris Morris, I believe one of the students who were very close with them leading up to the shooting, but I tried to kind of explain it as he got a girlfriend, I believe, is what the owner or manager of the Blackjack Pizza restaurant at the time where Dylan and Eric both worked.
Okay.
Also Chris Morris, I believe, worked there as well, and many other members of the Trenchcoat Mafia, and it was a known meeting place for the group as well. But the point being is that he had made claims along with another friend. I'm forgetting his name, but I actually pulled the video just in case. But yeah. Anyway, they both claimed that they helped shut down these fireworks stands, basically these large fireworks stands, and through doing so, they were gifted huge boxes of fireworks, and then they drained the fireworks up in the mountains of the gunpowder and the black powder, and basically rigged up pipe bombs up in the mountains and set them off, and were bragging to their buddies, Dylan and Eric were, about the crater they had caused up in the mountains when they blew up one of the pipe bombs. So, and by the way, obviously, we'll get into the fact that you have prior knowledge and an affidavit that was derailed that was supposed to have been filed that would have led to a search warrant for Eric Harris's residence, right? Which I think is a major red flag, especially considering that the affidavit was entirely, as I mentioned, derailed, but never filed, right? And an investigator was never even, actually assigned to the case in any way, and it looks as if that was by design because they were attempting to cover up any tracks leading up to the event before it took place, because they clearly covered up all of this after the fact. So that implicates either the in hindsight they realize how bad this looks and the reflection it would have upon the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. That's best case scenario. Or in my personal opinion, this could legitimately lead us to imagine some sort of prior knowledge and implication into involvement to some level in the local operational standpoint of how you would greenlight something of this nature, and that seems to also play into all of the different interactions criminal interactions leading up to. There were numerous reports and also police responses to Eric Harris's home leading up to this. He had smashed the windshield of a fellow classmate named Brooks Brown, who was a buddy who they actually Eric warned him away from while he just showed up to the parking lot and he was about to start the shooting apparently, and Brooks Brown was out smoking a cigarette, and Eric sees him, and Brooks starts giving him shit because he missed an English test.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently he was a very good student, and according to Brooks, this is uncharacteristic of Eric. And Eric said, I like you now, Brooks. You better get out of here, basically, after he said that he doesn't care anymore and nothing matters, right? And that was because I watched Brooks. He kind of did this media tour just after the shooting took place, and he was emotional, definitely. I mean, he said, I'll never be able to show my face again, at this school. My friends shot and killed, people that I know, and right. And it was kind of, and also I believe Brooks was one of the two specific Columbine students who were entirely exploited by Michael Moore in Bowling for Columbine, and he basically set them up for kind of entirely, according to Brooks, sort of strategically strung them along to where they would inevitably give him the information he desired in order for him to misrepresent them out of context, right, for the show to kind of kind of reflect his values and political agenda, and isn't that always the case?
Is it
Right?
true that they didn't really go bowling that morning? Is that completely BS? What's your
It doesn't look like it to me. There's no real, security footage. Nothing that I've found. The only thing that I can find is security footage of, I believe, Dylan. It might have been. I'm trying to remember which one of them now went into the kind of the. It was a gas station. I forget if it was which gas station. I think it was a Chevron, but I can't honestly remember at this point. But anyway, I know that there was security footage of him basically going in and buying a couple propane tanks before the shooting took place that morning, and because they had actually arrived at 6:15, that normally, as always, as any other day, and then left at some time throughout that. And it's interesting because it's not well documented at what point they left the school. And this is to me, I find it too convenient that the janitor or the custodian happened to have changed the tape just as they allegedly positioned their black bags and duffel bags into place, which had not only a few of the guns but also many of the bombs, and so that weren't already staged in the building. So I think the notion truly is that, and according to obviously the bomb summary report and all of these various factors, is that they staged the building throughout that time before they left to go change clothes and essentially meet back at the parking lots. Although they did park in separate parking lots in the school, but still, they rigged both their vehicles up and then basically met in the parking lot. Well, they both separately went into the school, and then they left and went back out to the parking lot and suited up and got their weapons and things of that nature as well. But the point being is that it seems like there was an initial investigation into the plausibility that I think some of the individual local authorities were obviously acting in good faith. Not everyone was, I think, some sort of controlled agent within the context of a modern Gladio operation going green light. But at the same time, I think it is important to know that you have infiltrators that are clearly, I think, intended to kind of throw the smoke into the mirrors at the perfect moment, and especially in terms of the response, which was highly criticized, obviously. But
just real quick, and we can I want you to continue on that track, but I just want to throw in, Eric mentioned this to me. One of the kids made a video or a year or two earlier about simulating a shooting or about something happening, and his father was FBI or part of the later investigation.
Yes.
If we do that sidebar quickly, then we'll go back to the response. Sorry, that popped in my head. I wanted to bring that up.
Not a problem at all. I think it's a crucial point within the narrative, I believe, because obviously this proves there's significant prior knowledge beyond the level of the federal involvement, right? And I think that it was Dwayne Fuselier, I believe, is the FBI investigator he was in charge of the Columbine investigation, which is fascinating to me. And it was he had two sons, by the way, who were both involved. And again, this is in regard to the Columbine tapes, right? And I think that it's kind of important to understand that they had. Really, the basement tapes were kind of all they were just destroyed and never revealed to the public, right? So much of this is 2011 that happened, where they were effectively memory holed, and this was the justification was the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department claimed that they wanted to make sure there was no influence or further influence or inspiration for future school shooters that they could take from the basement tapes, which I believe to have been just a perfect cover, because there are many rumors and allegations that are unsubstantiated, but still they fit perfectly into the fold if as far as I'm concerned, in terms of an actual teacher at Columbine helping make the basement tapes and actually having a relationship with them outside of the school. and even going so far as to kind of introduce them into certain occult values and things of that nature, because there was allegations of several of the classmates at Columbine in regard to teachers basically training students into how to have better sex, but also talking about witchcraft and voodoo, which I found to be very interesting. But reincarnation was a factor, and then let alone the death education program. But to get back to the point, right? I think it's very strange that obviously you have this ridiculous hitman for hire video, right? Which is that in itself is fascinating to me, that they're filming it at the actual
Columbine.
at the high school itself.
Yeah,
honestly. And but yeah, so you have one of the individuals who co-produced this video was the son of the FBI's lead agent in the investigation, and this is from the Associated Press, right? May 8th of 1999. So you have basically this individual that helping create as far as the son create he shot this training film for the high school slaughter just before it took place. And so this is also, I think it's very important to remember, one of the eyewitnesses was actually Dwayne Fuselier's youngest son, Brian, right? Which is very strange, because he was in the school cafeteria at the exact same time, but happened to escape after seeing one of the bombs explode. And that was reported by the Denver Post. So that's the exact same. That's the brother of the individual who helped create the basement tapes, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
So it's insane, man. And this is so yeah. It's just, again, when you realize that 2 years before the actual assault, and it depicts the very similar, right? You have these trench coat wearing students moving through Columbine High School, and just basically even ending the video with a special effects explosion that, and Columbine actually blows up, which there was kind of an avenue where people believed that, apparently, according to the official narrative, and it seems as if they wanted to rig the school well enough, especially the cafeteria and the library, to essentially, basically, the library would be effectively destroyed and fall on top of the cafeteria. And so they wanted to maximize casualties as much as possible. But really, they were hoping to blow up the school. And they wanted it to initially be a bombing, and then only secondarily be a shooting, and wait and post up in the parking lot, wait for the victims to flood out. And that is when you kind of strategically utilize the moment to mow them down as they're fleeing from it's very interesting to me, though, that obviously you would have this level of federal involvement, but clearly the implication is, and Janet Reno herself claimed that this was no conflict of interest, right? That there was no conspiracy to be found here, which is just the funniest thing that you could ever imagine happening, because obviously we know her as the butcher of Reno, or of Waco, I mean, and Janet Reno, and I'll never forget, just as far as whenever I was doing a little additional digging on Waco, I discovered that during her reelection, she was very concerned at that time, and she was basically threatening to blow the lid off of what really happened at Waco if she were to have lost her reelection campaign. And I found it very strange, especially considering that there's a potential MK Ultra connection to an institution nearby in Waco, which I was very unaware of. And it makes a lot more sense why there were so many different intelligence operatives on the ground. International intelligence footprint there. You had members of the KGB, Israeli Mossad. It was almost like, what can we learn from this domestic operation that we're running here?
And you had Timothy McVeigh handing out pamphlets and selling bumper stickers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The path of the sheep dip Patsy, right? And that is once again, I see that perfectly playing out in terms of Columbine with Wade Michael Page and the Sikh temple shooting, right? And as far as the 2012 shooting in Wisconsin, which is fascinating, because I believe he could have potentially been one of the key operatives. Well, there are allegations that he was directly affiliated with the Trenchcoat Mafia while he was living in Littleton after he was given a general discharge for being under the influence of alcohol while he was assigned on duty on base at Fort Bragg, and he had spent basically his military career at Fort Bragg. He had spent training as a psychological operations specialist, and then he gets a general discharge months leading up to Columbine, and relocates to Littleton, Colorado, 6 miles from Columbine High School and 6 miles from Blackjack Pizza, and 4 miles from Columbine and 4 miles from Blackjack and 6 miles from Eric Harris's house. Sorry, but it's just fascinating how that plays into it as well. But again, man,
Littleton's a spooky military industrial complex kind of area, and I think I gleaned from your 4-hour underclass podcast on this that there may have been potential jurors or people who were part of the Holmes theater, James Holmes, they call it the Batman theater shooting in I think 2012, who were students or survivors from Columbine. So there's another connection there, right? To that mass shooting.
No doubt. There is definitely, it's kind of an overwhelming number of the jurors that were assigned to the James Holmes Jefferson County court case, right? That was playing out. It's the same exact courthouse where Columbine was in the spotlight. And it also seems like there could be, and I know this is definitely more of a kind of let's just say speculative connection that's far more in the vein of a let's just say I believe there's some sort of occult ideology that's very well entrenched within the minds of the ruling class, and I do believe that this is kind of very much achieved and pursued and applied in many ways. And that was most evident to me in the Son of Sam case with the Process Church, the Final Judgment, and how they were basically, many of those murders seem to have been priority hits, and these were targets for assassination that were willing to blow the whistle on some of what was happening with the cadaver connection and the trafficking of heroin through military bases and things like that. And so and then realizing that there's a secondary layer to the actual murders that took place, and not only
they could have been filmed too. They could have been filmed.
That's what I'm saying. Is that I'm just going there because clearly they were targeted for that reason. One of them was working for this medical supplies company, and that was one of the ways that they were actually trafficking the heroin. And so it's very interesting because I believe that she clearly was provided a window into this enterprise and what was effectively happening, and then began running her mouth and was basically hung out to dry. Yeah, and so what it looks like happened though, because it seems like it was outside of the Eliphas Club, which again, this is Eliphas Levi. You have this kind of theosophical connection to the occult, and Aleister Crowley and Helena Blavatsky and these various occult ideological kind of prominent personalities that have led to, I believe, the path of the mass shooter Patsy at this point, which is very much what I was kind of hinting at the beginning in terms of the serial killers leading me into this, because essentially the concept of the serial killers led me to the urban myth of the snuff film, right? Which I believe was clearly kind of a misdirection. They were attempting to mislabel something that was very obviously credible, and many different cases we can point to that prove out the fact that snuff films and this enterprise of unfortunately filming murders in a very sinister way, but also they like to apply this kind of occult ritual connotation to it, and I think that's very interesting. So Eliphas Levi, it's strange. Obviously, they would choose that venue for the crime. And then also you have the van, which is spotted with multiple perpetrators in it, and them claiming that 2 separate people helped commit the crime, but also that there were at least 4 people in the van who witnessed it, and they had a camera with a tripod set up while they filmed this murder.
Right.
And that is so fucked.
It's insane. And once you come across the reality of this, I begin to cross paths with, let's say, the psychology of a modern mass shooter and the Omar Mateen networks and right, things of that nature, right?
Oh yeah, the Pulse nightclub shooting.
My God, buddy.
Yeah.
So Austin, so Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold both worked at Blackjack Pizza, and as your research shows, they did their seems like they did their jobs pretty well. There were some infractions, maybe them lighting off fireworks or maybe dealing with firearms after hours or out in the parking lot or something. But what are some of the like mind control or MK Ultra or intelligence connections through Blackjack and some of the people that were part of that milieu that lead you to think that there's more to the story with Columbine through Blackjack Pizza, and you don't really hear a lot about it?
Right. Yeah. I think, it's very interesting because you see this strange footprint begin to take shape in the context of these victim witnesses going on the record with investigators at the time, just after, and this was in like local, it's in within, I believe, just kind of neighboring jurisdictions like the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and things of that nature are also getting kind of individual criminal witnesses, even if they are underage, on the record, making statements about the trenchcoat mafia in the area and things of that nature as well. And I think that it begins to kind of, obviously, Littleton itself, right? You have this absurd number of Lockheed and Martin employees. It's I believe you have 35,000 residents at the time, and it was over 10,000 were employed by Lockheed Martin, which is that's pretty stunning, honestly.
That's
and
spooky.
Yeah, very much so. And just talk about an extreme influence of the military-industrial complex on the surrounding area, at the very least. And also, I think it was the Pentagon basically ordered the construction of this missile factory, this intercontinental missile factory at the time, right? And this was in the 1950s. It was in an effort kind of during the Cold War to combat the Soviets, which is so much of the justification for Gladio itself, right? The post-World War II Gladio network of stay-behind networks and rat. I think it was really it helped facilitate the Nazi rat lines post-war, which was crucial in terms of paperclip playing out in many ways, and they had already done so much just as far as they had. I mean, all of the different individuals involved with the Phoenix program, and right, all of these strange kind of examples we can utilize where, and then also you have these mind manipulators and psychological warfare operatives that are sent over under the context of kind of debriefing these Nazi scientists. But in reality, they're learning, they're learning their techniques, but not only that, they're picking and choosing which of them are viable candidates moving forward to kind of receive that rehabbed image into their new position in the power paradigm at play post-war, and that in itself, I think, is proof positive of what we're dealing with here, right? This is the crossroads where the Vatican, organized crime, and the intelligence apparatus kind of all intersect and create this cabal that really has disrupted all of global society, and in such an effective and efficient way, and also seems to kind of insulate this ruling class from accountability in the most effective way as well, and that also applies to heads of state, which are very much, I believe, kind of preordained and put into place in many ways. And it just it's unfortunate to witness, but at the same time, there was this individual named Carl Raschke, right, who's a professor at Denver University at the time, and he specialized in teenage cults, I guess, and claimed that these federal agents were on high alert for an attack on Monday, April 19th. And so this was all being talked about on these chat rooms online. Yeah, it reminded me of the Vegas shooting in many ways because of the online chat rooms that
chatter.
yes, that
Yeah.
were
Wow.
I mean, what was it, 4chan at the time during that, which was implicating the security screeners in the hotels in the Vegas casinos, and basically this was they wanted to insert a kind of TSA playbook into Vegas, and this would
Bring
be
that
one of the best ways.
infrastructure. Chertoff is part of that.
Michael Chertoff, yes,
Chertoff.
sir.
Little 9/11. Let's ship the Israelis back to Israel quietly.
That's the one.
So, is there any evidence or any suggestion that Dylan and Eric had other shooters with them? Were they the only shooters? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I definitely believe there were additional shooters, and I think you know, we kind of have this example given to us in the form of these students who obviously witnessed multiple shooters at the time, but were kind of urged by authorities to change their stories, or at the very least they were kind of pressured into making additional claims that would kind of disrupt,
muddy the waters.
Yes, exactly. And I think that once you realize there's this true possibility of additional gunmen, then it's hard to dismiss. And that comes in the form of even Sheriff John Stone at the time was talking about a third Columbine shooter and said that some of the students named another suspect. And he himself said there was quite possibly one other person shooting. We do have witness statements, he claimed, and the statements came from these students who were witnesses at the scene when this was all going down, and they agreed on this third person's identity. So he also claimed, the Sheriff John Stone, that investigators have also questioned him after he went public and made that statement, which is a common theme throughout the Columbine investigation, where especially with the parents, before they were kind of forced and backed into the corner and forced into actually, actively pursuing legal action and litigation against the local authorities and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. I mean, they were clearly being pressured, and also kind of they felt as if they were being investigated as potential perpetrators of some kind, who were effectively helping facilitate the operation, when in reality they were obviously just the parents of victims trying to make sense of the actual aftermath and the police response. And again,
have you seen Sue Claybold's TED Talk?
Actually, I haven't watched it, but I read about it, and I read many of the statements that she made. But I'm curious because I definitely should, because I think the main thing is that I was almost resisting in doing so, because I felt as if just any of these kind of manufactured media events or just opportunities that seem like it's a way for the mainstream media and the just the, let's just say, the Mockingbird media. It's a way for them to at least misdirect any sort of individual of the general public, kind of like probing back behind the curtain. And that was my only real concern, is that maybe she would be led into making some sort of statements that would help reject certain avenues of research as conspiracy. But I don't know. What was your take?
I've watched it twice. It's only like 15 minutes, and just on a human level, man, I feel for her. I mean, I really, she's clearly in the speech. She does say, I honestly had no idea about any of this. He had made diary entries where he is, talking about how he wanted to die. And the lens that she pushed it through was kind of like he was suicidal and he wanted to commit suicide, but him and Eric Harris brought 12 people with them. So she got a lot of pushback from that speech in her
12
book.
People.
12, yeah. Wasn't it 12. More like, yeah.
I said up to a dozen. Okay, that's fascinating, because honestly, I believe there was at least 8. So, 12 12 would make sense if you have two teams of shooters that would effectively need to make their way through, which essentially was described, and even video footage was made public just recently. It was like 2016 or 17.
From the roof or something, or from another part of the field, or
Yes, it was from a high point, right, where I'm trying to remember which camera caught the authorities going in and just firing blindly into the cafeteria underneath the tables where the students and surviving students were hiding, which that alone is just what kind of protocol are you kind of
that's a good lead in, Austin, to this notion that perhaps a cop accidentally killed a student.
Oh man!
At the shooting, right? And that was covered up. That's a thing I heard you mention in your podcast.
Yes. And just don't let me forget. But I only wanted to answer your initial question about the potential third shooter, especially because they were actually identified, and that was you have dozens of witnesses and over 100 people saw multiple shooters, which is fascinating to me. But you also have dozens that were interviewed by police after this and claimed that from 5 to 8 individuals participated. So you have over 100 claiming at least a third shooter and additional gunmen. But then you have dozens who are going on the record claiming you have 8 to potentially.
They witnessed with their own eyes and saw.
And they knew who the students were. They knew who their classmates were.
Exactly.
Even in the panic and the terror of that, how can you confuse that many?
No kidding. And that is why it's like I remember Dave McGowan. That's the reason that I named my episode "Anatomy of a School Shooting," because I thought it was the perfect name. I mean, honestly, and especially because when you begin to realize, buddy, like what Columbine truly meant to the subconscious minds of the American people, and really the domestic aftermath, the phenomena of the Columbine effect itself, I think it's absurd the level of kind of dystopian. Let's just say the totalitarian tiptoe was taking broad leaps in this moment, and it always seems to exploit that in a way off of the back of these mass casualty events, or what could be looked at as an emotional, arousing, violent false flag, you could say, to quote Michael Aquino and the Mind War and the Psychology of Victory. But it does seem like, and especially because the way that I kind of described it was really that Columbine basically introduced this concept, into the subconscious.
Well, it modernized it for our generation and a little bit older than us. And because, if you research your stuff, you learn about Texas, the clock tower shooting down there with the sniper, the guy down there picking off students at a college.
Was that Michael Xavier Howard, or no? That was Micah Xavier Howard. Was the Dallas shooting that I think he shot a bunch of cops is what happened at the Black Lives Matter event. That was the one.
I'm talking about way back in I think the 60s.
Right.
So that's a whole that in our generation doesn't know about that. And even before that, there was a school shooting. I think it was in Oklahoma, or I forget where it was, and it was probably closer to 100 years ago. So it's not a totally new thing, but like you said, it kind of introduced this to our collective psyche. And I've done some substitute teaching. I had a long-term post as a fill-in history teacher for 3 months at a high school, and we had to do a school shooting drill. And of course, all I could think about was Columbine, and what they have in place is, just lock the door, get the kids under the desk and in the corner and hope for the best. And just the act of doing that drill and getting that into the younger generation's heads, it's almost like the Columbine thing is just, it's going to be in our minds. And it was the event that really kind of modernized it. And you got that film Elephant that depicts it. You've got all, like you're talking about, the copycats or
Ant film, right?
It's just it's in our collective consciousness. And I think the Columbine thing is so important because it only was 26 years ago, but it's been the template for so many not just school shootings, but mass shootings in a lot of ways. So,
Yes.
you know, I say it is still very important. I think it is incumbent on us to look at it with a critical eye.
100%. And that's why you know, I found it so strange that serial killers almost began to fall off the face of the earth just at the time where mass shooters became a public phenomenon.
Like the
Yeah.
mid '90s was kind of the like the '80s was a huge serial killer boom, right?
Right.
You know, '70s, '80s, you know, and then you have fantastical claims from some of these so-called serial killers. Oh, I killed 100 people, and I can show you where the bodies are. And it almost seems like, to your point earlier, like there was this one serial killer who was basically just, he always got a slap on the wrist by the feds, and he served his purpose. I forget his name. I watched a short documentary about it recently, but they knew what he was doing.
Right.
He was, you know, he was killing and meeting his need to kill, but he was also killing people that would, you know, it was convenient targets for whoever the masters were that he was serving.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So Austin, these other students, they actually did have names of who these other triggermen would be. Were they ever interviewed or talked to, or anything followed up on? And like, where would they be now? Are some of these kids still alive and like walking free?
Oh yeah. It's it seems like that was exactly the statement that one of the students had made and gone on the record claiming, and especially also saying that they questioned the integrity of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, and that the Sheriff's Department themselves even put that in the report. And I thought that was very, very interesting. But yeah, once again, it's like you have 5 to 8 individuals, you know, dozens of potential shooters, and as far as dozens of witnesses, I mean, and that see 5 to 8 additional gunmen or potential shooters, and that in itself is ridiculous. But how are we supposed to you know, chop that up, you know, just as far as in my mind, how are we supposed to kind of like interpret that as just a witnesses in the moment having trouble recalling anything due to the kind of heightened environment and
fog of war, confusion. They thought they saw other shooters. I mean, you know, 1 or 2 maybe, but like you said, 8 different people.
Yep.
Or no, more than that.
Yeah, and
seeing as many as 8 shooters.
Exactly. And but I mean, this is when you have the autopsy as well. All the autopsy reports were never made available to the public, and that in itself is very interesting. And I think I think that when you have a judge ruling against all of the families of the victims, but also ruling on the side of the families of the killers, the perpetrators, which I found very interesting in terms of keeping the autopsy reports hidden. And some of the families of the victims were on the side of the perpetrators' families in that moment, allegedly not wanting to make the autopsy reports public. And I found that very strange as well, because it seems like to me, you would want as much public transparency as possible surrounding your child's death.
Yeah, I mean, ballistics, what bullets hit them, from what guns did they come from, what direction, where were their wounds, how did their wounds track with what eyewitnesses saw students get shot. I mean, you could paint a much clearer picture.
Because the library is really the one that all the documentaries focus on, and really where the most people were killed, from what I understand. And of course, where we're told Eric and Dylan either committed suicide, or do you think it's possible one of them shot the other? And that's a whole other thing too, with them, the gun underneath. And
I think maybe even they were so. If you consider the potential notion and the conceptual outcome of them being under some sort of prior programming, which we'll get into the MK Ultra connection at Plattsburgh, and also what I believe to have been the suggestible nature of Dylan, and maybe the perfect chemical recipe that would help lead him to kind of emotionally falling into the fold of Eric. And I think Eric was much more of the troubled child that was kind of unfortunately put in this position, potentially even by his own parents, which I find to be a common theme in regard to the ruling class and a lot of these military families at the highest level of military intelligence. They hold dual loyalty to secret fraternal organizations of powerful influence, and they are also behind the disruption of modern society and the structure of the current system. And I think that when you begin to realize through researching the Pilgrim Society and the Anglo-American establishment, or the Society of the Cincinnati, and many of these organizations helped form. They basically were aristocratic families that benefited off the opium wars, and created the modern institutions of the, at least in the West. And Skull and Bones in Yale perfectly represents that in terms of being kind of the origin of a German death cult, and the foundation was entirely kind of funded and financed by those aristocratic families from the opium wars. But it just goes to show that this is the kind of the age-old playbook that's coming to fruition. And what I see with as far as what I think is most important with the death of Dylan and Eric is that I legitimately, and the reason that I mention all of that is because I do believe that many of these families even participate in what look to be Nazi breeding experiments. Is at least kind of how you could describe it perfectly, because that's where it really was first exposed as being a systematic operation. And it also, I believe, Lee Harvey Oswald could have potentially been a spawn of a Nazi breeding experiment, and the son of a Nazi SS U-boat captain, and also the brother of Carrie Ann Thornley, who created the Discordianism cult.
Do you think him and Thornley were brothers?
Yes, that's what.
I think Thornley was at least an imposter. I never heard that they could be brothers.
We're going to run that by Corey Hughes, Mike.
Wow. I am dead serious.
So you're not wrong. His mother, Oswald's mother, was part of the Waves program. What business did she have being part of that? In reality, if she wasn't, that just kind of slipped to a little bit in her Warren Commission testimony, where she's supposed to be working at a retail place selling something, and then she's in New York with part of the Waves program during the Second War. It's like,
I'm telling you, look up. There's a. I'm gonna send you guys a link here in the private chat, because there's an article that you guys should all go and read, and it's on. It's kind of this. The website itself is David Livingstone, which clearly is a pen name, I believe, to some extent, but he has some sort of. He seems to be somewhat of an expert in terms of the just kind of the Gladio networks, but also the structure of
families and intelligence.
Absolutely. And that's one of the main things that I think
hereditary.
He helps expose this sort of genealogical factor that I think so many of us don't focus in on. And I mean, we're talking distant relatives play a major part in a lot of these political dynamics, as far as the family dynamics and the political fabric of society at large.
Well, Oswald, his biological father dies either when Marguerite's pregnant with Lee Harvey Oswald, or shortly after his birth. And
look at this picture, guys. Tell me that this is not crazy.
Do you mean to share your screen,
just stage? Yeah.
So this is the guy they claim could potentially be his father. It's possible in some sort of transhumanist breeding experiment. His name was Admiral Karl Donitz, and I believe he succeeded Hitler in 1945 for a brief period of time. But this is the potential individual that Kerry Thornley claimed was their. They were half brothers, I believe, is what he claimed in some sort of MK Ultra experiment, where they were bred for that very purpose, and that they were then kind of it's a product of creating undocumented children for the purpose of using them as experimental test subjects.
Identity transfer too,
intelligence work. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Austin, so you mentioned Nazi breeding experiments. You know that. Anna Fried from ABBA was born of that.
What?
So her father, her father was a Nazi stationed in. I believe she's the one in ABBA who was originally Norwegian, because their other ones are all Swedish. and her mother was impregnated by a Nazi during the war, and she was born from that relationship, and then she moved to Sweden or something when she was a kid to live with her grandmother to escape it. And my friend told me that one night over beers, and it absolutely blew my mind. I'm like, there's no way that that's true. And then, of course, I went and looked into it. It's totally true, dude.
Man, I'm gonna have to.
We're big ABBA fans too.
Yeah, I love ABBA. Yeah, you know.
Hey, after I did the Laurel Canyon episode, I had to come to terms with the Hollywood industrial complex as well.
Some of your favorite Soma and Pap and entertainment is just all fucking Lookout Mountain.
Oh, yeah. Lookout Mountain,
you know, just intelligence work, basically.
Even the Beatles, who I love, man. I mean, I became a drummer because of Ringo Starr, and he's really the only truthful Beatle. I mean, well, actually, there's a black dude named Bernie Perdue who says he did a lot of Ringo's parts. I don't know if you've ever seen him. Check that dude out. I mean, everything's an op, right? Like everything's an op on some level. Everything's mythical.
Yeah, it's fake. It's gay. It's retarded.
Are you guys cool? I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, dude. Hey, that's what when my screen goes black. That's I mean.
Yeah, Mike's sipping those cold Modelos.
Modelo, folks. This is for True Detective season 2 fans. Colin Farrell drinks a Modelo and chases it with Johnny Walker Blue Label.
That's revelation of the method right there, Austin.
Yeah, exactly. I'm programmed now. I need a Modelo.
Programmed to be, folks.
Programmed to
yeah, go for it. But yeah, Eric, dude, when you told me that, man, that blew my mind. So was she raised to believe that someone else was her father, or like from ABBA? Like, what was the?
Yeah, I'm not sure how deep it went, or when she knew, or what they told her growing up as a kid. But I know that was like obviously a check and a stain on those kids in those areas where the Nazis were that were children of that. So
because they really believed in that eugenics shit, right? The blue eyes, blonde hair, like and that's what that's what that Nazi was like involved in and going.
Yeah, I kind of know it on the surface. I didn't go like too deep into it. I think there is some kind of documentary about it that she had told me about, who told us about it. So yeah, for people listening, it's an interesting thread to pull, and they just got honored, ABBA, by the King of Sweden, King Gustav.
Did they?
They were appointed an order, a very rare honor and distinguished achievement that is not given out very often over there in Sweden, and all 4 members got it last year. And they went to the palace, and there was a whole ceremony.
So do they get free parking and like free Sizzler at Applebee's, or like what do they get with that? Like
I don't know what kind of, I don't know what kind of Illuminati games comes with that. What kind of duties,
And that's the thing. We were talking about the Beatles, and just kind of really is like half joking. Like I watched this clip, dude, of George Harrison's widow Olivia, of Ringo, of Dana Carvey, referring to Paul McCartney as Billy.
Billy.
There's literally clips out there. That's like Obama saying Mike and
Michael.
Who's he talking about?
No, seriously, Big Mike has a hog plus.
Like, why are they calling Paul Billy, Eric? Like, are they making fun of the theory that Paul died in '66? It was replaced by William Campbell, and it's like a tongue-in-cheek thing.
Denny Lane was pretty cagey when he was asked about it.
I think he was drunk in that video, dude.
Yeah.
They said, William Shears was in Wings, or I forget the other name, but he was like, no, that was Billy or something.
It was Billy.
But yeah, you can look that up on YouTube, man. I'm not saying I believe it, but it's one of those things, it's interesting.
Interesting to look at. It's some kind of Tavistock op,
Yeah. But the thing is, music, Austin, the thing is the music is still good. Like, even if the stories are all lies, whoever actually wrote that music and produced it and actually put pen to paper, and next week we're having a guy on, a dear friend actually, who was in the Beach Boys touring band. It was in Brian Wilson's band for many years, and I've talked to him a little bit about this stuff, like Laurel Canyon, and he's part of the LA music scene, and a little bit, and he definitely has some stories and finds it weird.
Right.
But I might ask him a little bit about that next week. But
definitely,
he's been part of the Beach Boys scene since the late '90s, and there's a lot of stuff there with the Manson family and Dennis Wilson and Mike Love saying he met. What's that?
The Golden Penetrators. That's what they called themselves. The group that they were like essentially what's the term, where hedonistic lifestyle basically is what they were living at the time, and Dennis Wilson was very much living that sort of lifestyle, and he was banging all the Manson girls and kept contracting STDs he would go to the local health clinic with all the Manson girls and get a shot, but
they took over his house.
yeah, I know, he had to kick him out, which I thought that was such a crazy story. Whatever, but I'm telling you, with Manson, it just realizing that you had Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate was a member of a witches' coven. I didn't realize this. They practiced the occult very heavily, and Roman Polanski was affiliated with the Process Church of the Final Judgment, and the chapter in Rome they had just visited prior to Sharon Tate's death, and the Rome chapter was then deliberately closed just following the Charles Manson murders, and it's very strange how that took place. But
Rosemary's Baby had that cult dude in there who they made a Netflix documentary about him. He was also a gay porn star, and he had an appearance in Rosemary's Baby.
The Knowing.
Go figure.
Of course.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say we stand on the shoulders of Dave McGowan. Strange scenes from the
contract,
of course, Program to Kill.
Obviously, yes.
But yeah, he I read both those books kind of in the same time frame as each other, and you just get throttled by it, dude. It rocks your world, even if like a small fragment of that is true, which I tend to believe most of it's
right.
I kind of you pick up on that vibe, dude, and you just kind of know instinctively, like, yeah, this is probably closer to what the reality of all this stuff is than all the bullshit we've been fed our whole lives.
I think those two specifically, and then obviously I like to mention Eye of the Chicken Hawk very often as well.
I need to read that.
Gallison talks about that a lot too, and it's frightening.
It is frightening, and I'm talking. You start the first page, you're in darkness. You're shrouded in darkness. You're like, whoa, we're at the black belt level.
Dude, you're in Carcosa. You're at Carcosa.
Exactly, and that is but also. I think sometimes there is real value in ripping off that naive veil, you have to. Yeah, and instead of kind of slowly prying it back, it's like some people need that abrupt shock value, that kind of rocks them to their core, and
that's the Woody Harrelson character. That's the Woody Harrelson character in season 1. He had to be shown the tape by McConaughey in the fucking storage locker to believe it. He had to be shaken.
The other night, Austin, when I was a little drunk, I sent you Yoda. I'm not afraid. Gerd, you will be.
Yeah,
you will be.
Exactly.
That's what it is, Austin.
It's 100%, and that's exactly my feeling when I always reference 8mm as well. That film from 1999.
The tape is real. It's real.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just that when you see his visceral, emotional, instinctual reaction to what he saw on that tape when he views the 8mm film strip, and understands that this was truly a snuff film that took place, and then he still tries to leave the room by convincing himself it wasn't real to a certain point. And isn't that how we all feel at a certain level when it comes down to recognizing this as a reality that we face as some formidable threat?
On the nose, dude. It's a billionaire who's gone, and his wife is left, and maybe she didn't know. Maybe she knew, whatever, and she wants it investigated. And the Hastings, who were still around, who were the bagmen for that billionaire, obviously want to control all aspects of that, knowing full well it is a real snuff film. And dude, that's like tip of the iceberg shit. I can't believe that movie got made, dude. It was a major Hollywood movie. And
Joel Schumacher made that movie. The dude who made Lost Boys and the 2 Batman nipple sequels with George Clooney and Val Kilmer. Same filmmaker, which is interesting.
They put that out there, kind of maybe thinking, we would be like, oh, wow, there's no way that would ever happen or is real.
Yeah.
A little bit of predictive programming going on there, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned how at least they used to have a little respect for us in the writers' rooms. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, they could at least develop. They had a strong sense of appreciation for at least some musical talent at a certain level, and I will say to this day, as much as it has become a guilty pleasure, I love the Soft Parade, and I'm a huge fan of the Doors. I always have been since I was a kid, man, and it's impossible for me to reject that kind of emotional just the mood they evoke from you with those.
That's what it is, whether it's music, whether it's film, whether it's an event like Columbine. They know that when that's broadcast on mass media, writ large to the public, there's going to be a visceral emotional response.
Exactly.
And they pull on those strings, and they know that.
Yes. And I think that, the hippie movement itself was a manufactured psyop in order to disrupt the anti-war Vietnam movement at the time. That was very well kind of, it was definitely, at least, just remember the Watergate episode, right? Whenever I was researching how Karl Schaffler and the members of the military intelligence they held dual loyalty at the time to military intelligence, but they were infiltrating the DC Metropolitan Police.
Right?
And they had like an investigative unit that they created, and man, I'm trying to remember now what they called him, because there was a nickname for it, because the individual was a degenerate that was in charge of the unit itself and was like a sexual deviant and was known for that fact, and apparently was on the take, obviously, and helping with the facilitation of local mob affiliated brothels and various prostitution avenues that they were setting up around DC at the time, and for purposes of sexual blackmail, because it's always been this crucial tool that they've tried to kind of leverage against any of the political class, and which largely I view as actors or puppets, and I think that but the point that I'm making, though, is that really I had brought up the Nazi breeding experiments. I wanted to, there's a direct parallel at the very least with the Paul Schultz case that I brought up in the context of Columbine, which I found fascinating because it draws in Michael Aquino and the Star Chamber. And I believe this is an offshoot of the White Eagle Underground and the Brotherhood of the White Temple, which
now, who's Schultz again, Austin? Who is he, to explain to our audience?
Schultz. Okay. So, well, before I get off track, because there was the one, so I, once again, I'm kind of
we're weaving, we're weaving, and you know what? To everyone who's paying attention to Epstein, please listen to this episode tonight, because this is the lower part of the iceberg before Epstein that we're talking about.
Yes, I believe at this point Epstein was also low-hanging fruit and almost middle management in a certain way, and
he's the front man in a lot of ways.
It's a creation.
Exactly, and I think once you realize how much he played a pivotal role, but there are many different operatives who have fulfilled this same exact technique, and one of them being Craig Spence, right, in the Henry Vinson Confessions of a DC Madam, which, by the way, that comes up in the context of Columbine, which blew me away.
No way.
Yeah.
Craig Spence folks who died in a tuxedo in a Boston hotel in like 1989.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it turns out Todd Blodgett was Reagan's White House basically he was the White House point man for reacting to the media in the press room, and essentially he helped. Now this is fascinating, and but I have to say, because if I don't finalize the point I was trying to make with the Nazi breeding experiments, I might never come back. So I'll finish that point first, and that was only because I wanted to mention the details of Kerry Thornley's statement, because again, this is what Garrison was investigating at the time when he's claiming
his confession. It's a 50-page confession in a lot of ways,
right? And Garrison, I mean, he identified Thornley as one of the impersonators, obviously, of Oswald at the time, and that he believed that he was working on behalf of the CIA with Oswald in a joint domestic operation, and so at every level, I believe what Garrison claimed in that context. But I will say that this is an extraordinary claim that Thornley makes, and I love it as much as I
wrote The Idle Warriors, a book about Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination.
We're talking predictive programming, right? Let's have a what was it? A defected basically an individual from the military defects to the Soviet Union and becomes an assassin. And yeah, it's fascinating that you can actually apply this. And by the way, he was stationed with him for a time at Atsugi, I believe, the Air Force Base, where they're conducting behavioral modification experimentation upon people at the time, and also performing the what was called the intelligence dangle of the fake defector program, where they would, I believe that Oswald was trained how to speak fluent Russian, fluent Russian at the Monterey Language Institute, where, by the way, James Holmes' grandfather was also trained as a high-level military intelligence officer.
Get the fuck out of here, dude.
I'm dead serious.
Eric.
But Thornley, he says that Oswald, he and Oswald were both products of MK Ultra, and he said it was in the context of prioritizing the creation of Manchurian candidates, and that one of his handlers was apparently, you had Gary Kirstein and Slim Brooks, right? Were these kind of two mysterious middle-aged guys that were his handlers, basically. And Thornley basically claimed that he believed that Kirstein had in reality been senior CIA officer and future Watergate burglar E. Howard Hunt.
Right. I've heard that one.
And that one, by the way, I'll never forget the fact that St. John Hunt, the son of Howard, claims that he was not at the home during the Dallas operation, obviously, as he claimed he was, and used his own family as an alibi. Mm-hmm. But in reality, he was the point man in Dallas as far as at Daley Plaza, and that he essentially was running point, and that he was identified by a couple of witnesses there on the ground. And they were scared that he would be identified by his ears because he had unique ears. And so he went to a plastic surgeon right after he came back home from Dallas, and had his ears tucked, or like I forget, I think it's tucked, but I can't remember what they call it. Pinned back, I think is what it is. But either way, talk about a little bit of a smoking gun as far as some sort of involvement at the very least. And then you also have Tosh Plumlee, who's the one very close friend of St. John Hunt. And he never claimed he would never disclose any of this or blow the whistle unless St. John Hunt told him he could, because he claimed that he was loyal to his father still, and even after his father died. But then apparently the son of Howard, St. John, went and told him, man, you gotta go public with all this and start talking to people, and providing details. And so essentially Tosh Plumlee went on the record claiming that he was one of the getaway pilots for the hit squads that day, the two hit teams that were brought into Dallas, and that he was one of two pilots who actually flew in the hit squads. And so he says the other pilot was Barry Seal.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that, or June Cobb, who could be UJ Wynn. But
exactly.
Honestly, Austin, Tosh Plumlee, I don't know, man. He kind of, from what I've looked at, he sounds like a dude who is kind of had some connections to that world, but was also someone who hangs out in bars in Louisiana and Texas, in that area, who's telling tall tales. And he says, we were part of an abort team on the other knoll. And it's like, I don't know that I totally. And you know what's interesting? Rob Reiner uses Tosh Plumlee as a big source for his
seriously?
Podcast series he did with Soledad O'Brien. Yeah,
interesting. So I would take it all with a very skeptical spoon. I would say, of course, right?
Like anything, you got to use your gut and your own discernment. But
exactly,
I don't quite put him in the same camp as Judith Ferry Baker. But the Tosh Plumlee thing, I don't know that I'm totally. I don't know, but I do believe there was a plane that had. Someone on it that looked like Oswald. That could have been Kerry Thornley, or it could have been Bill Seymour.
Oh, for sure.
Those two names factor in. But we're veering off a little bit, folks. There's all these threads. There's so many threads.
I apologize.
No. That's the way these conversations go, man.
It's refreshing to be able to have this conversation with someone who understands and knows the names and references. And most of our audience will probably know a good amount of this. And if they don't know it, they'll be compelled to go check it out and go on their own rabbit hole.
Right. I just, it's hard for me to resist sometimes when it boils down to the overlap And I think that's
Yeah.
where I come across
Pattern.
as almost that's why we identify as schizo bros. I think at a certain
Oh,
level.
totally schizo. Yeah, again, like Yellowstone.
Yeah, Galison.
Exactly.
I'm trying to be schizo for a sec.
So yeah, I mean, let's steer it right to fucking Vegas, Austin. Let's
Awesome, buddy.
let's pack our bags and let's leave the nice foothills of Colorado and head over to Vegas, and let's go get a room and play some blackjack with Stephen Paddock.
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
roll the dice, dude. So the official story of the Vegas shooting is that Stephen Paddock, by himself, in a room in the
Mandalay Bay.
Mandalay Bay from the 36th floor.
I think it was the 32nd, but I could be wrong. I'll have to
Yeah.
look because I know there was rumor about the 33rd being implicated to some extent, and that there were definitely 2 rooms that he had rented. But go ahead.
That Paddock rolled up there with all these guns and brought him up to the room, and kind of really with no motive or no reason at all, shot and killed 60 people at this harvest. What was it called? 91 Harvest Festival.
Yeah. Festival.
Who was it? Aldean, Jason Aldean, was headlining and playing, and killed like 60 people and wounded 200 or 300.
Yeah, it was a significant number. Yes.
And they rolled up on him, and he killed himself, and they got in the room and found him, and there's our guy, and let's put a little bow on it. And now here's Steve with the weather.
Man, wounded 867 others.
Holy fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about damn near 1,000 people being hit.
Exactly.
Like 60 killed.
I think the way that I always described it was I started through the lens of Operation Fast and Furious and the ATF gun walking scandal, because I definitely believe he was trafficking weapons. He was an arms smuggler, but I believe that the enterprise never ends with kind of achieving one facet of the layered agenda, right?
It's an onion. It's a layer cake. There's other things going on.
Exactly. And so I kind of stumbled upon additional allegations that provided a broader picture into what was potentially happening in terms of Silkway Airlines and Stephen Paddock and his footprint in Vegas as a way to significantly launder money, through organized crime outlets as well, involving this Russian mob figure by the name of Razdan Shalayev, I believe was his name. And it's fascinating that you kind of have this playing out where, no, he wasn't into playing video poker. He was actually laundering his kind of operational money from this clandestine lifestyle.
As Trump would say, his cash.
Exactly. But in reality, there's a reason why he doesn't have much of a footprint leading up to the event taking place. It's because he's intended to be a ghost. This is the spook that we're speaking about, in my opinion. And that is what my firm conclusion just after my kind of deep dive into Vegas. And, so take that for however you will. But at the same time, that is definitely the window I'm viewing this through. But I think that the way that I explained it was basically they were trafficking these weapons, I think through Silkway Airlines, and he himself had accepted one of the planes at Chicago O'Hare National Airport, right, where one of the or International Airport, where one of the Silkway Airlines planes actually delivered one of these weapon shipments, and he himself, a man by the name of Stephen Paddock, signed and received this plane at Chicago O'Hare. And that in itself, I always thought was almost the smoking gun of the direct connection into what he was doing with that airline and that private air service and organization that he was running that was based out of the Philippines, which is very strange when you understand who I believe to have been his handler, which was his wife at the time, or his significant
Filipino woman.
Yeah, Mayor Lou Danley, which is, that's just like, it gets very interesting once you begin to realize that she was like a freedom fighter in the Philippines, leading that had been kind of tapped by one of the CIA. Uh, um, I believe the individual who is running the CIA. What's the name of the international branches where they have a strong footprint in a specific area? There's a term for it, but
like the foreign desk or the
I'll find it in just
not
a moment.
embassy. Now, did she have a key card to his hotel room? Was she listed as a guest in the room?
Oh yeah,
There were a couple of their names.
There were three women. Three women specifically
That's
were
what I
listed.
wanna get to.
Marilu was not on the
She
list.
wasn't part of that.
No, but he did use her ID to check into the hotel room, which is very strange because obviously she wasn't even present, and it's obviously it's very interesting to even.
Have you, Austin, watched any of John Cullen's research on this?
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
John
Honestly,
Cullen, I listened to your stuff on it, and I listened to him, and I was like, "Holy shit, man! I didn't know any of this stuff."
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge.
Basically, Paddock was there with these three women, kind of under the guise that he was going to sell them guns, or they were going to go shoot guns together.
Out in the desert or something.
Out in the desert,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
Yeah. And all three were suspiciously, I believe those were the women who were going around on the ground at the music festival.
Get out of here.
warning people, get the fuck out of here. You're all going to die. Yeah, that's it definitely, that was on the record from many of the witnesses who were on the ground and claimed that these women were trying to fight their way up to the front and warn people. So it starts to make sense that they effectively knew something was happening. And then also there was a prostitute that claimed that he was under mind control and had a sort of brain implant of some kind, that his actions were being this is something that he confessed to her. Apparently, whenever he had gone dark and people couldn't find him right before the event popped off, apparently he was spending time with this prostitute in the area who disappeared just after the Vegas shooting. It was very interesting.
I remember that story.
It's very strange, but I will say that this Marilu Danley, she was even mentioned by the sheriff Joseph Lombardo at the time, right? At the infamous press conference where someone taps him on the shoulder. It looks like his handler who whispers in his ear just as he's talking about one of the cars that belonged to Stephen Paddock, and effectively, kind of like potentially it was I believe an avenue into discovering what he was doing with some of these strategic assets, and also who was around him leading up to the Green Light Go operation and event that took place. And I don't even think Stephen Paddock shot a single shot. I think he was probably already dead whenever the kind of the event went live. And that's mainly due to really the aftermath of the footage of the body and the pools of blood. And it had obviously the body seemed to have already been going into rigor mortis, and none of the shells, right, as far as like any of the actual ammunition and the casings that were just in the pool of blood. It didn't make sense. It looked like essentially almost like the pictures were manicured and in some way kind of altered to a certain level. But then there's the tattoo and all of these different things that kind of play into this body of Stephen Paddock and the questionable outcome of kind of the autopsy results and things of that nature. And so I'm almost questioning the fact that this was, especially in terms of the Saudi connection and the Al-Walid bin al-Talal, I believe was the name of the individual who was supposed to assume power before Mohammed bin Salman. But basically there's this major power struggle in Saudi Arabia at the time, and MBS he had fled the country for a moment just before he returned, and then implemented a major coup, right? The Saudi purge.
This is when they locked him up in hotels, right?
Locked him up in the hotels, exactly, which is very interesting. And that all followed directly after the Vegas shooting took place. And so there's a lot of allegations and I think significant just evidence in terms of even MBS potentially being at the Tropicana that night, which I know so many people have pushed back on that, trying to make out that grainy footage of the security team escorting that individual through, which I get it. He's in like gym shorts, and it's obviously like, could it
Looks
be
like a
Mohammed bin
rapper.
Salman? Yeah. But it's also very strange that one of the members of the security force has like this very unique styled weapon that's only given to Mossad agents, basically, as far as the which I found to be interesting at the very least. It seems like there was high level security detail, and it might have been intelligence operatives who were actually on the ground there. And but so I always thought that was kind of an important point, is that this was a very unique weapon that the security team was actually wielding,
Right.
walking through the Tropicana. And man, they're not calm. They're screaming at everyone there, to put their hands up, right? And they were pretty aggressive, it looked
Super
like.
intense. So,
Mhm.
what are some other points you would say to someone who's like basically put the Vegas shooting out of their mind and have totally forgotten about it? Aside from what we've already mentioned about Paddock and his body, and obviously we haven't talked about the window wasn't smashed when you see on the cops' body cameras when they arrive, that footage. What are like some other glaring anomalies about Vegas that just slap you in the face that people might not even know about?
Right. Yeah, I think mainly I thought the helicopter story is very interesting because obviously you have witnesses who are claiming that they witnessed people firing out of helicopters into the crowd. And so that was a few claims had been made in regard to that being a potential reality. And then also you have individual witnesses claiming, and many of these witnesses then had a very suspicious deaths following their statements and
Right.
going on the record. And also there's a very strange outcome in terms of this older man who had been at the country music festival, and then just a few weeks following the event he had shacked up in a hotel room with his young daughter, and she was like around the age of 6, I believe. And basically he murdered his daughter and then committed suicide. And when they discovered his body, apparently the local authorities found his cell phone. And what they revealed was that one of the authorities revealed that the cell phone had a battery that was specific only to that of intelligence operatives, and that this battery belonged to many FBI agents when they were actually on the ground running these sort of domestic operations, or at the very least kind of infiltrating and domestically and into some of these organizations and things of that nature. And so who knows if maybe he had his phone bugged by the feds, because many of the feds had obviously rounded up a lot of the devices that were present at the event, and when the individuals received their device back, basically it had been scrubbed, and much of the video evidence and things of that nature was no longer there or present in the device. And so there were many examples of that happening. But this strange instance of kind of an urgent what's it called, evacuation, basically, or extraction is the term, an urgent extraction on the top of one of these, at least the top of a couple of these hotels when the shootings began. Now this could be perfectly normal as far as just prominent wealthy individuals who are kind of just I don't know, have the ability to escape in a moment such as this, and charter their private helicopter or plane or whatever, and get out of town as fast as possible during the chaos. I could understand where you were trying to flee the scenario at a certain level if you're some sort of high priority subject and you have the ability to leave. But obviously, you have an active shooter situation where he's firing shots at the local airport that's hitting fuel tanks at the airport. So, and by the way, that's a very talk about missing your target. Which I think and many people have made this claim as well, that have researched this point, and that is that potentially he was firing at the fuel tankers on purpose, and this was by design because he actually he had a secondary target, is what they were claiming, and I found that very interesting. Which who knows? Because that could also play into the notion that Stephen Paddock wasn't behind any of this, and that this was an arms deal gone wrong, and was effectively meant to be an assassination in the framework of a false arms deal playing out that was orchestrated and put together by a low-level, operative that's just kind of handled into place and in regard to helping facilitate the arms deal. And then he's made the patsy, and
he's wrapped and rolled. Yeah,
exactly.
That's what kind of John Cullen kind of thinks, that it was a botched assassination attempt of a big Saudi of MBS, right?
Right, exactly, of MBS. Right. And that's what I think is most important. And yeah, so before I get into the Maverick Aviation Group, which is I believe kind of implicated in this directly, and also seem to have been kind of a long-standing intelligence tool as far as involving some of these conflicts. What's up, brother?
Mike, you see that?
Hey, so they get us. Yeah, I saw it.
He's our world.
They're doing shaving.
but yeah. So basically, with the MBS connection, though, you have really you have this interesting kind of I think what matters most is Al-Walid or Al-Talal. Al-Walid Al-Talal, I believe, is how you say his last name. But I believe he specifically made these statements while he was incarcerated and under he was. Who knows how accurate you are being when you're kind of under threat and you really have no choice but to say. It's almost like a waterboarding type situation.
Yeah.
You'll tell your abuser no matter whatever they want to hear at that point, right? And so it's possible that plays into this at a certain level, but at the same time, I only really consider that most often whenever it helps reinforce the official narrative that seems to be misdirecting anyone who comes into this with some sort of objective mind, considering all the strange red flags that are not at all being, let's just say, in any significant way addressed by the authorities themselves to help just even keep us from considering this as a legitimate reality, right? And I think so much of that is the issue, is that they'll kind of, if they address it at all, it will be in this bad faith manner. And that's what's so upsetting about the vast majority of these cases and how you see it kind of play out. But anyway, so you have this crazy notion that obviously, there's a potential coup and assassination attempt that was being conducted in the domestic U.S. in Vegas that very night, and it is a possible reality, and especially when directly after the fact, right? You have the major Saudi purge that plays out, but apparently the mass shooting could have been a Saudi Arabian assassination plot that ran amok. Essentially, is the point, and that this failed attempt against MBS at the Tropicana that night was basically they used the event that, as far as like essentially a firefight broke out between two security teams, and that this is what has been described by many of the witnesses on the ground at the hotels, even the Hooters, where shooters broke in through the back of the restaurant, because the Hooters was a hotel, obviously, and so they have a restaurant in the back, and basically you had members that looked like they were dressed in all black that they thought at first were SWAT, ran in through the back of the restaurant in the kitchen, and came in basically firing into the Hooters, is what they said. And so they were firing at specific priority targets, allegedly, according to witnesses at the Hooters, and that many of them were fleeing and just laying on the ground, playing dead. A lot of like the Columbine effect, where you have the students playing dead and laying in their own, fellow students' blood and things like that. And so that seemed to have happened in multiple areas on the Strip, where there were shootings that were taking place and being reported. in various other places,
other directions, way away from the main. What was it? The Mirage, the Tropic. What was the main?
The Mandalay Bay.
Mandalay Bay.
Yep. And that's so crazy to me, because if you look up, there's a map of all the reported shootings that took place at that moment, and all the witness reports. And my God, it's everywhere. And it's honestly, it does look like there was fundamentally a priority extraction that took place on multiple rooftops of these hotels. And I think that was at the very least a way to, if MBS was in town and this was a legitimate assassination attempt, and who knows, if you're a member of the royal family. So John Cullen was actually in the spaces that I was in when we were doing a Vegas shooting spaces like a couple of years ago, and it was right after I covered it, and basically I went on with Mayor Kate, Mayor Kate, and there's some, and Maze Love, I think, was the other girl, but they were
the Highway 99 documentary or whatever it's called, or Route.
I honestly don't remember, but she's very nice though. But I will say that I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it was like 6 hours, right? And my God, it was crazy. But I do think that there were members that were within the space that were potentially there to infiltrate the space and derail the conversation, and one of which was this individual from Saudi Arabia. And he was making claims that he knows members of the royal family, and that basically the royal family, they don't move like this. So it doesn't make any sense. There's no way this could actually be the case. But that was all he would provide as his kind of counter to any of the claims that I was making.
What? The Saudis are not going to be sad about some Americans being killed for political means and political ends. Because when we talk about 9/11 and some of the hijackers, like, look, it's not all of Saudi Arabia. The Saudi royal family is big. There are divisions. There are fissures. There are factions. But there's not going to be tears shed for how many people died in the shooting? 58, 60, and then there were 60. Almost 60, and there was 1,000 wounded.
Yeah, 867 are documented.
They're not going to be sad about it, and they will use it and they will spin it.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking Wahhabism, alive and well, and in Saudi Arabia, and
these people are fucking psycho.
100%.
Yeah. The psychos, man.
And they will use religion as a means to promote their agenda and their extremism. And, we've had John Kiriakou on the program 3 times, and he talks about a raid or a bust he was part of, and they stored gay porn and meat they weren't supposed to be using in a freezer. And he said, I've never seen so much gay porn and meat in my life.
Oh, my God.
And he's talking about the Saudis.
Wow. Did you see the in the recent Jeffrey Epstein emails? There was a strange connection to Al Walid, right? Bin Al Talal, the exact.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so I just noticed it. I think it was Radix Verum. She's great. She quote tweeted it, I think, and it brought it to my attention. But my God, I couldn't believe the fact that Epstein was essentially claiming that, in terms of he's far more interested in the Al Walid Saudi purge Jared access. He's talking about Jared Kushner, and Al Walid and Prez go back a ways, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Epstein was part of arms dealing too, man. Now people are just catching up on that, with Khashoggi and other countries, other access points. He wasn't just blackmailing and running, influence peddling. He was part of arms dealing, which was Prince Andrew's job in his country too.
Exactly. And that's, I think, what a lot of people kind of miss as far as that Khashoggi connection is it's damning, right? Because not only do we have kind of this unfortunate. Now, you guys already know. I think that if you're a political player in this environment, even if you mean well and you have good intentions at times, I think you're kind of you already have been drenched in these sort of techniques from day one, and they usher you into position in many ways. And I view that in terms of Roy Cohn and being Trump's mentor. I just think the man is entirely, connected to sexual blackmail operations on behalf of the intelligence apparatus. And I mean, he's running little boys, and we have David Berkowitz claiming that the Process Church was supplying him little boys for his parties at his residence that was very nearby one of Trump's residences at
For
the time.
Roy Cohn?
For Roy Cohn, yes.
Wouldn't surprise me.
No, not at all. And I mean, there was but the point being is just that it also, I found it very strange that the path of Trump, just as far as Casino Royal International or Royal Casino International, and this strong connection to the Rothschilds, and obviously the interesting component is this is a Meyer Lansky connected criminal syndicate that connects that exact same infrastructure that I was speaking on in terms of the organized crime footprint involving this hand-in-hand relationship with the intelligence community, and how they kind of run these domestic operations utilizing organized crime and various criminal syndicates for plausible deniability, I think, is a major purpose. But then he kind of accumulates these sexual blackmail properties over time, which I found very interesting. It's like
inherited, yeah. And Meyer Lansky wasn't the bookkeeper for the mob. He's the friggin' Kaiser Sose of the mob. He is the apex and the head and the connection and the fulcrum between intelligence, CIA, Mossad, and Israel.
Exactly.
Okay, and using these Italian Goombas as a front, letting Coppola and Hollywood fucking put The Godfather out. Meanwhile, it's Meyer Lansky who's the fucking real, behind it.
And I think that's the same with Epstein and the limited group, as far as the mega group. I mean,
Les Wexner.
Les Wexner. And I think it's just this is the Iran Contra playbook. This is in every way, this fits the enterprise and the umbrella, I guess, a term of what they hope to accomplish. And I found it so crazy as far as like, He acquires the hotel where Roy Cohn hosted the Blue Suite party. To sexually blackmail J.
It's a great building. Austin, excuse me. It's a great building. I made it really nice. I knocked the gargoyles down. I kicked out the tenants that weren't going to pay their fair share, and we did a great job with it, okay?
I love it.
You're not still talking about that creep Epstein, are you?
Yeah, exactly.
He's had a rough couple of days with those emails, Austin, hasn't he?
Tough, man. It's tough. Yeah, it's hard to deny the fact that we're surrounded by pedophiles in the ruling class, and
dude, you trip over them.
Yes,
and going back to Vegas, there were shots that were square in the head that are like ground level for the concert goers. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I just think. The reason I brought up Khashoggi, though, was that he acquired his yacht as well. That was obviously rigged for audiovisual blackmail. Prior to this, again, it's what we see so very often. But yeah, I think as far as the crazy stories coming from ground zero in terms of the actual shooting itself, it is. It's a little bit difficult to consider the lone wolf scenario being kind of even
ballistically, ballistic wise.
Yeah, exactly.
And just some of the cell phone recordings, and then when you put that onto a timeline,
right? Yeah, and I think that this most honestly, I'd mentioned all the strange deaths, and that was you had like many different instances of this. Like one of them being obviously. There were a spouse. There was an older couple that had essentially claimed they had told the media, and this was during the time her spouse was shielding her from the shooters. They spotted a beer locker and they fled to this beer locker and went and hid in it and until they apparently thought it was okay to run. And then after they escaped, she claimed, and this is to family and friends and on the record as well, that she apparently, this is what she claims, that the shooters were had finally left, and so she was claiming that there were multiple shooters at the time, and she had even mentioned additional shooters. And this was I believe just after she shared this publicly is when they died in a car accident that was very suspicious, which again, it's like obviously people get in car accidents, but it always what I remember is that tool that the CIA effectively achieved in terms of during Watergate. I found out E. Howard Hunt had gone to a meeting with the CIA poisons expert with G. Gordon Liddy, and he was basically kind of like he was stringing Liddy along the whole time, not as if Liddy was unwilling. He was perfectly willing, but at the same time, I think that he was kept in the dark on certain aspects of the true layered operation playing out. But it's so strange how they go and conduct this meeting with the CIA poisons expert, and they discuss how they could potentially assassinate Jack Anderson, the Washington Post columnist who was criticizing I believe which conflict was it? India and Pakistan conflict at the time during the Nixon administration. And so he was a real thorn in the side of the intelligence apparatus at the time anyway, Jack Anderson, calling a lot of attention to certain clandestine behavior and operations that were being conducted. And so he was on a short list of potentially being assassinated by E. Howard Hunt specifically, which again, it's like these are the Watergate, plumbers running around town talking about how they can kill a domestic U.S. journalist, who's just,
out of office email, people to kill when I get back from vacation, journalists.
It's so crazy, and so what?
And his
what
wife Dorothy dying in that plane crash with the suitcase full of cash.
Mm-hmm.
She had
and
cash, Austin.
There were a few other very prominent individuals that were on that flight as well that I think were kind of strategically on the manifest.
Targeted.
Exactly. And but I will say that the point that I was really trying to make was basically that oh shit, what was I talking about just before you made the Dorothy Hunt point?
Well, we were talking about Vegas and the the people who died in the older couple who died in the car accident. And after that, I want to get to, I think his name was Campos, the guy who went on Ellen DeGeneres, the security guard who supposedly got shot in the leg. I want to go to that after. But bring us
through Jesus.
Is he in Hawaii with the sheriff covering up the fires? Like,
ask Ellen. You got to ask Ellen, man.
Her set is the Epstein Temple. You ever see her set, Austin? It looks just like the Epstein Temple.
Oh my God! I gotta let my dog out. She's freaking out. I'll be right back. And then we'll
sure. No problem. Eric, you want to bring the chat? See if we have any questions, or
sure.
Austin is.
We'll go through.
This is a deep dive, folks. It's great to see everybody here. We got Gallisone, John B. We got Matt D. Rise to Liberty.
IB Denmark. Jackman brothers in the house. All the best to you both from Denmark. Great to hear from you.
Good to see you, IB.
Was Jason Aldean in on it?
No, I don't think so.
You look pretty shocked.
Yeah.
Missed you, boys. Excited for this one. Thank you, Ernie Truth.
Ernie Truth.
Arlene says, hello, friends.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, Jackman brothers. Hey, brother.
He's got that cactus in his profile.
It's unbelievable. Jackman Radio does it again. Great job, guys. This is a good time to remind everybody about our Patreon. We are 100% audience funded and supported. If you like what we do, consider signing up on patreon.com/Jackman Radio, $5 or $10 a month. And we have some cool shows in the pipeline that Mike's planning.
And we're on Venmo too, right?
Yeah,
Venmo is a great way to support us.
Yes.
In the links.
And Rise to Liberty says, hell yeah, this has been a great show. It has been a great show. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I love Austin. Austin's Jose Gallison, Mike.
Gallison, I'm not going to say he's my favorite of Tower Gang, but he's my favorite of Tower Gang.
Yeah. Everyone
Don't tell anyone that. Don't tell anyone. And then Clint Russell. Don't tell anyone.
I love it. Oh, man. Oh, I remember now what the point I was going to make, though, because it had to do with the car accident. And essentially that being a potential just viable strategic use or tool of the intelligence community to eradicate any sort of potential voice that could blow the whistle or provide any details that would help substantiate certain credible allegations surrounding the operation. And I think that throughout that meeting with the CIA poisons expert with Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy,
was it Dr. Gottlieb, Sidney Gottlieb?
Well, see, I don't think it was Gottlieb actually, but that would have been perfect, honestly. but I
Who's the
forget
other poisons expert?
Yeah, well, this is like one of the CIA poisons
Oh, okay.
experts kind of thing. But what I found most interesting about that story is that basically they were discussing kind of viable ways to go about assassinating Jack Anderson, and one of the strategic tools they would use, or at least sophisticated techniques, they would use, would be that of the aspirin roulette, they called it. And so they would basically put a poison pill in his aspirin bottle and wait for him to take it. And essentially it would take effect then. And so they were willing, okay, whoever might accidentally take the poison pill in the home, they're clearly not concerned with. But at the same time, that was just one of a few options. Another one being, apparently they had a specific technique on how they could commit vehicular homicide without any sort of understanding that it was more than an accident in terms of the local officials on the ground. And so they had apparently they had created some sort of technique where they could hit the vehicle at a specific speed and angle that would cause almost instant death. And so this was one of the valid options that they were pursuing at the time. So again, it could have been obviously just an accident that was tragic, and these poor people just witnessed the largest mass shooting in American history, and then happened to get into a tragic car accident.
They were riding with Michael Hastings. They were.
Yeah, exactly. God.
And Lloyd Jowers from who oversaw Dilly Plaza. They were riding with him too.
Yeah, exactly.
Lee Bowers. Yeah.
Oh, was it Lee Bowers?
Is how do people not understand that these techniques have clearly been sophisticated past?
There's precedent, and then now we can't even imagine the level it's at now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying, like, we're talking the 1950s. They had the ability to trigger someone into a hypnotic trance by using a telephone. So that effectively proves that the Manchurian Candidate film was just far too accurate for anyone to be comfortable.
They were just like, here you go, guys. Here it is.
I'm telling you, when Raymond gets the call and he's sitting at the bar and they say, Raymond, is this Raymond Shaw? And he says, yes, this is Raymond. Yeah. And they say, you should play a game of solitaire to pass the time. And bang, he's triggered into the first layer of programming, and his suggestibility skyrockets. And then instantly, what happens when he sees the Queen of Hearts? He lays down the first Queen of Hearts, and the secondary layer is triggered. And now he's legitimately willing to be activated into his programming. And then once he sees the third, he's off and running. And he leaves, right? He doesn't even acknowledge Frank Sinatra's character when he comes into the bar. And he just goes straight to the lake and jumps in, right? Makes no sense. And he wakes up, how the fuck did I get here?
There's 40 and Oedipus stuff going on too with the mother, like Angela Lansbury. God. But I mean, the 2004 Meryl Streep is tremendous too. I don't know if you saw that one.
The remake.
So frightening.
She's straight up Hillary Clinton in that.
They
movie.
updated for the Iraq-Afghanistan war GWAT, but it's there. It's all there.
My God, I will. I'm telling you, it's one nation under mind control. We haven't yet realized the level of just how much they have conditioned us, and I believe that clown pill is a part of the conditioning, because they are far more successful in achieving the outcome they desire than any of us would want to believe, I think.
So when you say that, Austin, the clown pill, do you mean like someone who's black-pilled who's still trying to use humor to deal with everything?
No. No, I know that's how.
Do we swallow the fact that Donald Trump is a clown and he's the one ushering in? Like, what do you mean when you say that they're conditioning for the clown pill?
Essentially, it's you're embracing the pageantry, and I think that the clown pill is minimizing the sort of level that they are capable of achieving, and I kind of think the strategic outcome is so just dystopian in nature that it's impossible to imagine that the kind of orchestrators and puppet masters that are behind the scenes and a part of the true power cabal that are kind of leveraging these political puppets to sort of provide really, I think, avenues for public perception purposes only, as far as just deliberately deceiving them. And so I view the clown pill as kind of dismissing the level of just
How nefarious it is.
no, it's almost like it's almost like the veil has been removed, and it's almost overtly in our faces now, and they don't even have much respect for our intellectual ability to
even lie to us.
Yeah,
They just do it.
exactly.
They're just blowing these boats out of the water in Venezuela. They're not even fucking pretending it's anything.
Right, but also they used to have some sort of etiquette whenever they would address the public, right? There would be some sort of, they thought they had to present themselves in a way that would be acceptable. That isn't the case anymore.
No.
And I think people are eating it up at a level where I kind of thought maybe it would provide you with a moment of reflection, and you would think, oh my God, I've been misled and deceived into this kind of state of mind of worshiping at the feet of these false solutions. And and in reality, they're sort of par for the course and insulated by the permanent establishment at large, and really only providing the public with the distractionary measure for us to view as, and I view what people are largely doing in terms of Trump in this current moment is crucifying him with all that is wrong in the world, or the exact opposite, or worshiping him for all that they believe he has accomplished on behalf of their best interests and their ideological preference. And those two options are obviously radically opposed and on the complete opposite ends of the political spectrum, but you're ideologically captured in that moment. And I think that the clown killing is really just the level of people seeing these kind of public statements being made, and they are like laughable, right? I mean, just as far as it's now, I won't say that I appreciate it. I think it's hilarious when he sits there and says that he's far better looking than Mamdani. And you know what I'm saying?
You can appreciate that.
It's hilarious, but at the same time, that is a clown pill to me in a way. And it's not only applying to him, because so much of the political class has followed that trajectory, because it is very much, I think, efficient in the moment and very effective. And people are tired of hearing the same old, kind of measured language that is intended to deceive us, and we can clearly see through it. But now they're playing on your emotions even more than ever, and that's the issue I find.
Deeper level of psyoping.
And people are in an over emotional state of mind.
It's basically the latest manifestation of Pennywise the Clown, and it takes many forms. That's how I view it. Like I told Eric before 24, when he was running, I said he will win, whether it's rigged or whether he does win legitimately, but he will come back darker and more evil and nastier than ever. And he will be like Freddy Krueger in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which Freddy is no longer bound by the films. And, a lot of this is like it's predictive programming, and it's familiar. It's like it's Santa Claus, Freddy Krueger, and Donald Trump have a saturation in our collective consciousness. Yes. And I almost feel like the red tie, the hair, the makeup, buffoonery is just like I don't know, it's just such a familiar thing, and it elicits such a emotional response on different sides, like you're saying. But to me, it's just another manifestation of Pennywise, and it's the latest thing that we can point at and try and hate, when in reality he's a symptom of a problem that's been boiling for as long as this whole deal has been around.
Exactly.
It didn't just happen overnight, like for everyone to be mad at just Donald Trump, I think you're missing the point.
Well, it's like what Austin said, you're captured in that system.
Right. Yeah. But how is that not, it's just so obvious that in this moment when he's being considered as a sort of lame duck, right? Then you see this cherry picking of the kind of ethical crucifixion in the public eye. And I find that very interesting, because it seems as if it's just another way to exploit the subconscious minds of the emotional public once again, who are kind of plugged into this political paradigm that I believe to be far more pageantry than kind of the true just power structure and how it functions. But I think many people are just not identifying. I think we have a common enemy. And this is something I struggle with so very often with all sides of the political spectrum, because I try to reject ideology as much as I can and kind of objectively stand on moral principles that I've hopefully, kind of just outlined and tried to reflect upon and understand at a core crucial level to hopefully lead me forward, that I can rely upon at my foundational level and fundamentally understand, because that's another problem. Wherever which way the wind blows is where you land for your ethical values, and that's kind of the name of the game in this current moment. And I've seen how they utilize these various assets like the Hollywood industrial complex to achieve those ends, and so many people are just emotionally captured and wrapped up into that to such an extent to where they can't seem to make sense of how they are being deliberately kind of misdirected into
manipulated,
facilitating that very outcome. And yet you claim, I mean, you will fight to the bitter end against your own flesh and blood, trying to defend some strange pedophile you've never met.
It's so DC, sad, dude.
Right?
It really breaks my heart, man. And I do use humor. Like I've always been into comedy and making people laugh, and I use humor. But beneath all that, man, I am very sad about what's happened to our country and the division, And even speaking from my own experience, I have friends that are like horrified by what I believe, and I get called a conspiracy theorist and whatever. And you're too soft on Trump, or maybe you hate Trump too much, and it just speaks to what you were saying. It's really like team baseball.
Yes.
And when in reality, I just boil it down to that meme where they show Earth. You are here paying taxes to pedophiles.
Exactly.
That's my political party.
Yeah,
never been more accurate.
He's the latest face of the fleecing, man. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And that is why I try to always remind just anyone I care about, and it's what I truly believe in this moment is that we are surrounded by this permanently insulated establishment that seems to just clearly be in more ways than one, let's say, as far as just when it comes down to the notion that there is some sort of solution on one side of the political aisle, then you've yet to understand how long-standing this kind of network has been in place, and also the political outcome that's been very much devised and manufactured. And so I'm grateful because I can see through that emotional baggage, and I've kind of left it at the door, and thankfully I'm only really more frustrated when I see the effect of the influencer industrial complex and how many of the kind of, let's just say, members of the general public who are fleeing from the last dying gasp of the mainstream media have been really recorralled into this modern mockingbird infrastructure that
very good way to put it. That's really well said.
It just helps to achieve the exact same outcome, and that in itself, I believe, is just a recycled tactic. And
we got gatekeepers.
MK Ultra just became social media. That's what I think.
Yeah,
100%, buddy.
Well, we are over 2 hours here with you, Austin, and we could go all night, and we're gonna have you on again soon for sure. But this has been awesome, dude. I've been looking forward to this for a while. So everyone listening, I put all of Austin's links in the description of this video. He's the host of the Underclass podcast and No Way Jose, and he just he does amazing work. And please, I implore you to check out his podcasts on parapolitics and the real way that power works in our world. And it is very frightening. It is very frightening, but it's also very liberating once you are open to it and accepting it as reality in the way that things work, and that the world is not what we think it is. But also can give you hope because we meet like-minded individuals. This is how Austin and myself and my brother, we haven't met in person yet. We will one day.
Definitely.
But there's a lot more of us out there, and we're growing in numbers, and people are getting hip to this stuff. So I'll give you the final word, Austin, for any plugs or anything else, maybe what you're working on for your next underclass.
Thank you, buddy. I can't thank you guys enough. I truly do appreciate this more than I think you guys realize. And every time I get the chance, it's just anytime I can learn during the course of a conversation with objective, open-minded individuals who hope to only kind of achieve the best for the people around them in a way. And I think you can really read the intentions off of people if you at least manufacture that psychological mechanism in your mind. I think it's a tool that's very viable and important in kind of creating relationships that are worthwhile and of real value. And I have to say, I just interacting with you both as much as I have, you clearly are beautiful people, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunities. And man, this is what gives me hope. As you said, like I'm not black pilled as much as it might seem. I just legitimately, all that I hope for is that more of us can acknowledge the fact that we are being kind of we're put into this unfortunate position where we have become the victims of the predator class. And I think that when it boils down to it, they are effectively convincing and deceiving us into facilitating their control over the current system. And so when the way that I described the Columbine shooting in my episode was that it had since become the proverbial expression for school shootings and mass violence, and basically symbolizes the tragic influence of such events upon modern society. But it also should continue to serve as a sort of stark reminder of the sinister nature of problem, reaction, solution, and the dystopian pretext, as I put it. And I believe that's often exploited and leveraged against us in all of these manufactured crises. And so that is why I put it in the context and through the lens of modern gladio and the strategy of tension. And also I put it the way that I described it. It was honestly, I came up with it post show on Already Dead a few weeks, maybe like a week or two before I actually got the Columbine episode finished. And I was just talking to Jacob and some of the patrons, and we were just kind of discussing the current news cycle in a way. And I really, in the moment, I felt like I just felt very grateful that I was surrounded by these individuals and this is how I felt, and the way that I put it was as we took up our position in the trenches on the front lines of the mind war. And I think that every single aspect of these scandals that our memory hold, and the layers of police corruption and the obvious miscarriages of justice that take place in terms of victims never getting any sort of accountability whatsoever, or it's just the level of control over the systematic response whenever any of these look. If you don't realize that they will effectively sacrifice your children, then you have yet to pay attention at the most detailed level of some of these sinister enterprises that completely correlate, and not just correlate, but directly connect in to the power structure and the current establishment paradigm. So all I will say is that I'm blessed to have you guys in my life and any of the listeners that engage with my content, because what I wanted from day one was to feel less isolated in my principles, and to feel like I could break bread with people of value that really wanted what's best for, as far as just the kind of the way that I usually put it is just worried about the best interest of kind of the people around them, as I said before. And that in itself, if that isn't your kind of ultimate priority in terms of only surrounding yourself with people who make you better, but also your desired kind of just hopeful influence will also be somewhat in that same sort of just hoping to achieve something that will at least, I don't know, reflect more positive and ethical moral values that you can rely upon and actively practice and exercise in any given day. And that is the only way that you can insulate yourself from the effects and the consequences of that very permanent establishment. So anyway, I'm grateful, brother. I'm grateful. Hey. Thank you guys.
Oh,
thank you so much, Austin.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love talking to you. Hang out with us a little bit after I end the stream. But everybody, please subscribe to Jackman Radio. And we're on all social media, on X at Jackman Radio. And we'll be back again soon for another episode. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.